Howdy. I've been kind of just hibernating in here this week, so I haven't really been following current events and stuff. Anything going on? Any news? Delicious. My guild mug. This was given to me. Hi, everybody. What's happening? What do we got going here? You guys talking about tubes? I put up that tube video yesterday. What did you think? Useful? Totally useless? Dan says he's shopping for Thornbuckers. That's cool. That's cool. And who else we got here in the house? We got 109 people online. Sorry, I'm late as usual, but I think you're starting to get the impression. That's just how I roll. The tube video was fun, says Ian. And I got somebody from Edmonton in the house here. The abandoned channel, or the abandoned Chanel. What's happening? What is happening? Cheers from Brazil, says Raul. What's happening with you down there in Brazil? Germany's in the house here. That's Jason. Jason's playing some dotted eighths. Christopher in the super chat there. Excellent video on the 12AX7s. Thank you. Very subtle tone differences. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's always pretty subtle, but you know, I'm still into it. I still like, I don't know. I mean, it's totally the smallest change, right? All things equal, right? And by that, I mean, like, if you've got working tubes in your amp, you know, like you have to make sure that they're tested and, you know, no microphonics and all that stuff and relatively strong. And then, but, you know, okay, so here's one point that I did want to make with the AU7, and I thought I would include it in there. I didn't actually, I just grabbed that tube and I thought it was a Sylvania 12AX7, but it was an AU7. So as soon as I started the looper and heard the loop play through, I was like, oh, it's super low gain. It must be an AU. And sure enough, it was, or an AT or something. But the point being that I guess that tube, I don't know what the exact spec is, but I assume it's about half the gain of a 12AX7, something like that. I don't know exactly. I'd have to look at the specs of a 12AU7 compared to an AX. But 12AX7s vary quite a bit in gain as well. So like when you put them on the tube tester and you can see how strong they are. So like the Sylvania in the test, Sylvania that I liked in the test yesterday, it reads super strong. Like both sides are like 109 or whatever, 109, 107. It's almost matched the two sides. Some of the other tubes will read like 90 on each side. And then if you were to test that like 12AU7, it would be way lower than that, like 50 a side or 60 or so. But anyway, you know, you're hearing slight differences in gain. Yeah, sure, you could just turn up your amp a little more, I guess. But I don't know. Like Stevie Ray Vaughan used to use 50, what are they called? 57, 51s or whatever, which is like a slightly lower gain 12AX7 style tube. Slightly lower gain, not as low as an AT7. But he liked those in his amps because he thought it gave him more headroom, evidently. You could turn them up more without them being, you know, driving, you know, a little bit cleaner tone. And I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess you could just vary the, you know, I don't know. However you get to wherever you get to, everything affects everything. But certainly one of the things that it's good to do is sort of, that's why I do this stuff. I mean, why I like to test things and see how much of a difference it makes. And in different amps, it's going to matter more or less. You know, some people were like, oh, you should use a clean Fender amp. And then other people, actually, I talked to Friedman about it, and he was like, oh, I like to hear it in dirty amps. But that's how Dave's a dirty Marshall kind of, you know, that's his main bag. He's an aficionado of that tone. He likes to hear. So, you know, it's whatever you're into, I guess, you know, and however you get to wherever you get is cool. El Rondo says the problem is over YouTube, it's hard to tell the differences of the tubes. You know, I don't really agree with that. There's a lot of people say YouTube compression and all this stuff. To be honest, you guys, when I upload my videos, they sound great on YouTube. I mean, they sound like they sound in here. Whether or not they sound great is subjective, I guess. But they sound like basically the mix and all that. All that YouTube compression stuff and everything. I don't hear that like everybody. And I like to think I've got fairly good ears. But I don't hear that that stuff. And it's so, no, it doesn't really sound any different over YouTube, to be honest. To me, the difference is you can hear in the video. It's, if you listen to it here, you would hear the same amount of difference, which isn't a lot. You know, it's just that there's not very much difference. That's the thing. Between all things created equal, you know, with good working tubes, I think that actually kind of interestingly, maybe the first two tubes that you hear, which is the Mullard and the Telefunken, there's as much different between those two as you can hear in any other two in the video. So if you want to get the idea of how much difference, because there is a noticeable difference, I think, between those two. I'm just going to catch this top chat here before it disappears. Zabo Wabo says, "Hey, Pete, pleasure meeting you at NAMM last year. I think it was 2 years ago, actually, now. But sorry it can't happen this year. Would love to hear further thoughts on the Quad Cortex." I was going to talk about that because I do have it sitting right here, actually. I could even show it. Why not? Let me get ready to do that. But in the meantime, I'll just talk a little bit more about what were we talking about? Tubes. Yeah, I don't actually remember even what I was saying because I'm still waking up. But okay, let's get this thing going. Anyways, fun to test this stuff, I think. I gotta unplug the audio here a little bit. Let's see this thing. Okay, there it is. The Quad Cortex. I was messing with it yesterday, trying some things, figured out how to load impulse responses. And you can see it's literally, you know, they show it, I think, on the website, but it's smaller than like a MacBook Pro in its footprint anyway. It's really compact. Let's turn it on. There we go. I'm going to light it up. While we wait for that, I'll indulge in some coffee. Takes a minute to boot. There we go. There's a little neural DSP situation. Hey Pete, excellent video on the 12AX7, subtle tone differences. That's the one I already answered. How did that pop up? I don't know. Did I do that? Maybe I did. Okay. So yeah, there's about a 60-second or so boot up. And then there we are. So this first preset that I did here is a capture. I called it high gain Jose lead of my my Germino that has the Jose mods done to it. And you can see I've got a little parallel path there where I put in a reverb. So basically it's like I've got a noise gate in the front, which is great, by the way. Adaptive noise gate that is quite cool the way it tracks your playing. And then there's a 808 drive that I can turn on and off with this button right here. And then there's the capture, they call it, that block right there. And you can go in and see that it's like, it looks a lot like a, you know, it's sort of set up like the Kemper when you do a capture or whatever. Really, it's, you've got your bass, mid, treble situation, gain, volume, and everything's on 5 kind of, and you can move it from there and it'll kind of digitally modify your capture, right? And then what have I got here? An echo that I can turn on and off, delay. Pretty straightforward. So I've just made a few of these. What did I do? Oh yeah, this I started off by doing with their internal AC30 model, which sounds really good, by the way. And their internal, like I mean the ones it comes with, you know. A deluxe, no wait, I used the twin reverb, and then I panned them like kind of 30 and 30, you know, like out a little bit. And so I've got AC30 on one side, then the deluxe on the other side, a compressor in front, some modulation. I used a flanger actually for just a, but I'm using it like a chorus really. And then I've got a, I think that's an echo, yeah, a little bit of stereo echo, and it sounds great. It's really nice actually. Just a slush, you know, with that, imagine a split like Fender and AC30 with both of them just on the edge of drive with the compressor in the front, and you know, it's that sound. It's really good. anyway, it's an impressive thing, you know. I'm still learning it and getting used to it, but it is really, I have fun with it. I will say that. Like, and that's a touchscreen, by the way, you know, where you you can move things around. So say you want to, I don't know, should I show you more? Might as well show you more, right? If I want to move this, I just grab it and go like this, right? And it'll move in the, you know, so things like that. And if I want to create, you know, like when I made this parallel path here for the second amp, I would just touch this and pull down, and then it makes the parallel path, you know, sort of like using Helix, but you're using a touchscreen, you know, to do the stuff. If I want to add something, I can go like this, and then you can pick from all the blocks there. That's like the effects, or you can pick, you know, amp, cab, compressor, delay, EQ, etc. And I could add, you know, parametric, graphic, whatever. Now I'm adding an EQ down here, and I can build another chain, you know. Here you can pick your input. See, I can pick input 1, so then I could build like a parallel chain. So you could build parallel chains really easily of like having, you know, up to 4 amp models running at once, I guess, which is pretty wild. And you know, or you could have 4 people playing through it. I think that's what they say. It's kind of interesting. These are all rotary encoders. So see the knob turning there on the screen. So these all correspond with the. So it's steep, man. It's cool. Tuner's really nice. It's probably the least exciting thing I could have said, right? But it is. It's really nice. Tap tempo down here, and then you hold for tuner. Tuner looks like that, and then if I was playing through it, you'd see there's a little green ball here that goes up and down, and it's really nice. It's really smooth and it's cool. I don't know what else. What the rest of the stuff you can probably see online, as far as you know. But anyway, I'm gonna do my usual thing where I make a piece of music, and you know, I'll probably do a combination in the song of captures, meaning my own sort of amp models, right? And a combination of that, as well as use some of the internal ones. Like I said, like I've already started making these presets and stuff, and I actually wrote a little something yesterday, and I thought maybe that's how I'll start it, you know, with that clean patch with the AC and the Deluxe. I know there's going to be lots of people doing metal with it and stuff like that, and I'll probably do a little metal myself, but you know, I want to like show off a wide range of the sounds, you know, with the more low gain stuff, high gain stuff, and my point was I'll use a combination of the internal amps and cabs and stuff like that, as well as using my own captures, as well as maybe using some of their internal amps with impulse responses I've imported and stuff, and you know, at least probably 8 different tones or something like that, so you can hear a wide range. And yeah, but that gives you an idea at least how it's really easy to use. I'll say that. Like you can see right now that you don't really need to crack a manual. I mean, it's like, you know, I figured all this stuff out just by doing it, you know, like, oh, if I touch that, oh, there, that opens that. Oh, wait, if I turn this, you know, and then it's like, right here is how you can assign the, to the foot switches, so that if you, okay, this is an EQ, I want to have it on a foot switch. This is assigned to H, or I can take that off like this. Assign to switch, assign to stomp, press stomp to assign. I can pick which one I want now to assign there. Now I've assigned it there. Done. Okay, now that EQ comes on and off and I just figured all this stuff out by doing. It's really simple without a manual. There's a few things where it was like, how the hell do I do this? Like, for example, when I was trying to figure out how to put an impulse response on, you use the cab block, and then like you have to hit the microphone. Okay, so all right, I might as well just show you the stuff. You guys are interested in this stuff, so it's like, aren't you? I don't know. Maybe some of you tube amp guys aren't, but this is the microphone situation here, and you can actually just move the mic on the speaker, right? Like in and out. So you can see it, like see the little dot, and so that's representing the center of the speaker, etc. And then this is the distance, so I can move it in and out from the cabinet, etc. So this is for the internal cab. So what if you want to use an impulse response? Well, you click here. And then, click here. Here's all your microphones that are the internal kind of microphone choices for the cabs. And then at the bottom is load impulse response. Now I can go there, and here's a list of the impulse responses and you've got all these different banks of impulse responses. You can put 24 banks of 9 per bank, or 8 per bank, I think, 8 per bank. So you can load up a ton of impulse responses in there, and then you just pick the one you want. And So that's how you do it. You get to the impulse. That'll be, I know some people are going to have trouble figuring that out. It was a little confusing at first, but once you know where it is, it's no big deal. So you just go into the cab block, bottom of the mics, and there's where the IR thing is. So little things like that. But, you know, this is the learning curve that I always talk about. that like is what I sit here and do. Okay, that's enough on that. If you guys got any specific questions, ask me. Somebody's saying, Paul is saying that it's got the big deal is supposed to have the feel of playing a real amp. You know, it's fun to play through. I'll say that. Like in playing through it and making my own captures and sitting here, I didn't 2 times now that I've done that, I haven't wanted to leave. Where I'm just sitting going, oh damn, I gotta go because I had to go to the grocery store last night before it closed. So I had some food. And I was like, you're having fun. You're like pushing it to the last minute because you don't want to leave. That's a good sign always, right? So I don't know if it feels like exactly like tube amp or whatever, but it feels great, you know? And it's really fun to play through. Just fun to, I don't know. I liked it. I do. We'll see what happens. I haven't made this piece of music yet. So that'll be the true, you know, when I get into it and I can listen back and go, shit, or shit. Or shit. Do you prefer the quad over the plugins? I haven't messed with their plugins that much, only a little bit. You know, it's such a different device because, of course, you can do the captures with it. And that's where my interest really lies because I'm an amp guy. I really love amps. And you know, at the end of the day, if I'm coming in here to play, I'm playing through an amp, generally speaking. So the ability to do my own, because I realized yesterday through using it that I've really got my cab thing dialed in where I like it, like my mics and my, to the point where I'm not using, nothing wrong with IRs. I should make some IRs of my setup right now, but I've really got my cab sounding great, like the way I'm micing and with my BAE Neve style pre and stuff, and it just sounds so good. So for me, amps through that is just killing right now. And like if I can capture that and then put that in a thing and then like, you know, and then have that to use or whatever, I guess that's interesting to me. So it's like, well, my point is your question was about the plugins versus the plugins are a static, you know, their models or whatever with their cab stems and stuff. But the thing that interests me the most, and you know, there's going to be different people that use this thing for different things, I guess. But the thing that interests me the most, I guess, is that, you know, ability to make my own sounds, put it in there, which I find really neat. So I guess I do prefer it that way, just because it's got those abilities. Okay, what inspires me to write? The first thing that came to mind is sound, like sort of sound and mood. Yeah, you're saying that you heard a singer earlier this week, and I almost feel like I fell in love with her soulful voice, and I just need to write. You heard a singer, like, and you got inspired by the sound of her voice or whatever. And I always remember brings up an interesting point in the scene in the Sound City movie where Josh Homme is talking about when you play with a musician and you sense their feel and their groove or something like that, or the things that they're playing and you're playing with them. And it's like, it's kind of like you fall in love with them in a way, like the way that they play or whatever, you know, obviously not like love, you know, but like love, you know, like it's because you're like, damn, that's so cool. Like they've got this groove or feel or whatever. And you're like, that's such a cool thing that you can get inspired by, you know, and play off of. And that's the beauty of playing with people in a band and why sitting in a room all alone like I do for hours on end and making music alone can be soul sucking. No, it's awesome, but it's a different thing. And playing with people is no, that was the point of that whole movie. I mean, it was like getting in a room with other people and playing together is amazing. I think, you know, beyond the console and the studio and all that, it was about all the camaraderie of playing. But what was my point? I get inspired by that and also by sound. So, you know, because that's the main way I write these days, and it seems to be working for me. Like where I plug in a pedal and go, oh, how about this riff with this thing, and then I write something. You know, so by tones and sounds and stuff, I really get inspired by that. And I don't mean it has to be like complicated. It can be, you know, the simple, you know, plug into an old tube amp and turn it up with a Supro with like a telly or something, and that's a sound. Or it can be an elaborate chain of effects with a, you know, you know, be it Axe Effects or something, you know, with and play through that and get a sound and get inspired by that. So those are the different things. Like every sound kind of inspires me to play a certain way. You know what I mean? You play a certain way when you pick up an acoustic guitar, or you play a certain way when you crank a Marshall on 10 and pick up a guitar with a humbucker in the bridge, and you know, and it's all different. And I guess it is Michael Shanker's birthday today. Let's wish him a happy birthday. So Ross Halfin put up some photos, some classic photos. Michael Shanker, terrific guitar player. Yeah. Oh God, the coffee's good. I've been making coffee at home and bringing it in, and it's working out. Although I feel like it's like, oh no, there's some left. Okay. I feel like I was running low. Who's my favorite left-handed guitarist? Says Alex. Geez, I guess my buddy Bobby Harrison. He's a really good left-handed guitar player. And who else? No, I don't know. He was the first guy that came to mind, you know. What else we got here? Oh, Doyle's fantastic. You know, Doyle, he's fantastic, right? I'm thinking of folks other than the obvious, I guess. My pals and stuff. Arthur says, helping to keep the rock rolling, yo, up there in the super chat. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for doing it. Who else we got here? Moving through the chat. Have I tried the Sir Woodshed compressor? I have not. I really want to try it, but totally into trying that soon. Definitely. Why don't you play us something? You know, I come in here and I'm not really, every now and then somebody will ask me to show something and I'll pick up a guitar and just play on an amplified, but I don't really have my setup to like play, and I'm not warm. It takes me 20 minutes to warm up. I suck if I don't warm up. That's the honest truth. I stink. If you were like, oh, can you show me how you pick, like, and I would pick up a guitar and do it right now, but you know what I mean? This is more about answering questions, this show, and talking about topics than it is about me demonstrating licks or something. It's just never been about that for 152 weeks now. Yeah, if I was going to play, I'd want to be warm with a great sound and all that, like probably most of you, right? Here's my contribution to your Joe Bonamassa cutting board, says Seth B. Okay, I got the Joe Bonamassa cutting board. I have it. It's awesome. You want to see it in my kitchen? No, you don't need to see it. Anyway, it looks like a 335, and I needed a cutting board, and I got one. What a useful thing. You know, bring home some nice cheese or whatever, and you got to slice it up. Eric Gales, left-handed guitar player, fantastic. Mike Bloomfield was left-handed. Was he? Rick Emmett from Triumph, left-handed, played righty. Like a right-handed, you know, the typical way, I guess. Ben says that I missed a super chat. Thanks, Ben. Bruce, what's your take on the Sir SSV Plus bridge pickup in an Hss Strat? I play mostly hard rock and 80s metal. You know, I haven't messed with that pickup a lot, to be honest. That's one from them that I haven't played with a lot. It's probably cool. I think it's around 10K. But I can't really comment because I don't have a Sir with one in it. I think that probably the H, you know, the 12K version is the one that is the most popular. Like the H, is that what it's called? HSS, SSV, HS, hot single. I can't remember their models right now, dude. But I think that whatever the one, the 12K one is, that would be the one I would be most interested in beyond, you know, just, I don't know. I haven't messed with it, so I can't really comment. Opinions on two notes torpedo cab M versus aux. Well, they're so different. You know, the aux having the load. If you already have a load box and you just need to do IRs, I think a torpedo cab M is great. I have the best luck when I use my own IRs when I load it in those. They've got their own in it, but there's a lot of them in their cab. And, you know, there's a lot of I think Two Notes is great. They make a lot of good stuff. How do I say? Like just for me, I don't know what this is an intangible thing with gear, with getting in and using the software that it's all like the quad cortex thing and stuff is a great example of like the flow that you're feeling when you're working with this stuff. It's like working with a computer program because you are. And you know how you use some more than others, you know, or apps more than others or whatever, you know, because it seems to fit into your thing, you know. So you know, I've actually already found things about the quad cortex, for example, that I'm saying I'm recommending to them that they implement little things, you know, where it's like, you know, what would make this smoother is this, you know, little things. And that's bound to happen, you know, because it's a brand new thing and it's work in progress. But just things with the workflow or the way that apps are laid out, you know what I'm talking about. Like, certain ones just seem like they flow, you know, like it's easy. So, yeah. What's my point is when it comes to the Cab M, I feel like it's really good, but I do get a little overwhelmed by their software and the amount of IRs, I guess, is what I was trying to say, and searching through ones that I like, you know. So, there's something about the aux that is like nice in the sense that it's like you don't have all those options because you can't load in more, and there's not 4 million. There's like 20 cabs in there, and you go through them and you figure out which ones you dig, and you know, it's a nice kind of experience, I find. I wish one thing I wish that I started to think about yesterday, because a lot of these units, all the rage seems to go Wi-Fi or something like, and also like with the H9. I think I learned this with the H9, which I have 2 of and I use. Does it drive me a little nuts that I can't get to the editor without Bluetoothing to my phone and all that stuff? Yes. I like, if I'm going to use one of these devices and there's a editor involved, I think a cable is a good thing. That's one thing I'll say. I think like being able to hook, I wish with my H9 I could just hook it up with a cable to my phone, like that there was a cable that, you know, retracted out of it and I could plug it in and immediately get to the editor. Do I want to go through that Bluetooth stage and all that? Ugh. You know, so that's the one thing with the aux. There's a limited number of cabs, limited number of mic placement, and in a way, I think that's a good thing because it's like you can get lost in all that stuff, you know. I guess I'm making 2 points, but to get to the point where you can get into the aux and get that app open and stuff can be, you know, where I've got a Wi-Fi. I have to, in order to do it, I have to Wi-Fi up to my computer, and then I use the app on my computer lately for the aux, you know. So it means I got to shut off my Wi-Fi on my computer, connect to the aux, and then I can pull open the app, and then I push connect to the aux, and then I'm there. And it's just like, I kind of love the old, at this point, old, which is funny, but the old Axe-Fx Helix USB cable, plug it in, there, it's working. You know, pull open the editor, not having to deal with, you don't need an internet connection, you know, or a Wi-Fi connection to, it's not necessarily internet with some of these devices, but you know what I'm saying. To get the aux hooked up, you got to make it it's got a Wi-Fi hotspot in it. I don't know. It was like complicated. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? If you have one, there's a little bit of a, you know, I love the thing, but these are just little things that I wish, you know, that it was like USB, good old USB cable, but include all that stuff, but make it so that you can just plug a cable in if like all that stuff isn't working. Cause sometimes, you know, it's problematic. So, Thor says he's in Sweden and it sucks there right now. Totally dark day and night and boring, and people are boring also. I could say something awful in Swedish right now. I'm not going to say it though. The only Swedish I know is terrible. So that's my Swedish friend Jorgen Carlson from Government Mule. He teaches me awful things in Swedish. I don't know how to say hi, but I know how to say some really offensive things. Hey man, what coffee, says Winning Media. Today is Intelligentsia, the El Diablo. That's what's going on today. Some oat milk. It's delicious. Steve Morse is left-handed? I didn't know that. Really? How interesting. That's Paul bestowing that wisdom upon us. Jason is there in the super chat, top chat, and he says he has an SSV Plus in the bridge of a PV Wolfgang. That's interesting. I like the 10K output level, but I find it a bit too bright and harsh. Certainly brighter than the Thornbucker. Yeah. Could this be due to Alnico 5 versus Alnico 4? Yeah. Yeah. If you're finding your pickup kind of bright and harsh, certainly when you want, that's one of the things why I was saying, if you wind it up to, you know how an Alnico 2 humbucker is warmer, right? Well, 4 is warmer too, but also if you start to wind more, the resonant peak of the pickup goes down as it gets hotter, generally speaking. And you get a warmer tone, generally speaking. So like a 12K is going to sound warmer than a 10K. This can vary with other factors, right? But generally speaking, when the hot, right, like a JB is Alnico 5, 14K or whatever it is, 15, I don't know. And it's mids, it's all mids, right? It's not bright in a sense. It's like, it's got upper mids for sure, but the high end rolls off. And that's just due to the heat, the winds, you know? So yeah, 10K Alnico 5 can be bright. I mean, a 9K Alnico 5 can be bright, but depends on what you're playing. You know, if you're playing more high gain stuff, I guess that can be, I don't know. It's all a balance and what amp you're using and stuff. But yeah, if you're finding that it's a little, you're saying you like the 10K output level, but you find it a bit too bright and harsh, you know, maybe what you really want is a Alnico 2 hot kind of thing or something. You know, if you're going that direction, like the custom or, you know, something like that. Probably sound good in that guitar for high gain, something like that. You know, hot and warm. Yeah. Okay. Aquila says that he has the new Amplitube 5 demo. I will be making a video for that very soon. You're saying it crashes your interface. That's interesting when you fire up the plugin. Yeah, I mean, those types of things, they generally, you know, will work out over time. You know, they'll probably fix it. I'm sure they'll get that report and figure out what's wrong. 13K is nice in Alnico 5 pickups to me, says Steve. Yeah, I think that's kind of why, like 12K, 13K, you know, it starts to roll off that top end a bit, and then it sounds, you know, it sounds cool. Braxall says, do I think the SLO 30 will sound just as good as the SLO 100? If you like what the 100 does, I would go for the 100. I mean, it may be, you know, I tried one here, and to be honest, I you know, when I decided a while ago, to listen to them against one another, and I thought the 100 was more my, because I tried it and I went like, oh, I like this thing, having this one thing around for this great thing that it does, you know, as an alternate high gain fat kind of sound. And then I tried the 30 and I thought, I don't think it's quite, it's just me, you know, it's just what I think, but you know, and it was only one time listening, but I was like, I think I'm gonna go with 100, you know, that's just me. It sounded like, you know, things are a formula. It's a everything matters, everything affects everything, and it's like, you know, it's a sum of the parts, like every tone. So when you change out one thing, like the power transformer and the, you know, the you know, power, you know, like a 50 watt Marshall doesn't sound like 100, you know. If you want 100 watt, you should probably go for 100 watt, you know. Like when I was considering, for example, when I was considering getting the Jose mod thing done to you know, that I had done to that Germino, I thought, could I just do them on a 50? Because it's kind of all about the preamp distortion in these amps, and could I just do it to a 50 watt, and would that sound, you know? So because I was looking for an amp to mod. And I remember Sir saying, if you like the 100, you should just get the 100. Like you get a 100 watt version of that amp, because it's not going to sound the same. And he's right. I know that. I mean, I know that from listening to this amp, this 50 watt that was in the tube shootout. You know, a 50 watt Marshall has a compression and a certain, you know, they're both loud as hell. So like you really notice it when you put it the cab in another room and you mic it, and then, you know, it's not so loud, and just like, because a 50 can sound a lot like 100, I think, if you're just in a loud room and you're not really, it's not like clinical listening. It's like, you know, it's like, oh yeah, they're both ripping loud Marshalls, you know? Okay, now isolate the cab and mic it and listen to it through studio monitors at a reasonable volume. Now you're hearing all the like, oh, compression and headroom and things. Like headroom is something you know, you'll really, and compression, the amount of sag, I guess, you know, is something that you really notice. So if you, I guess that's the thing, maybe with the SLO 30, bringing me back around to, you know, with the 30 and the 100, if you love what the 100 does, and it kind of has, the other thing I've learned about those amps is they've got that sweet spot where they, you know, they sound okay, like when you turn the master down, but there's the thing that happens when you get it above 5, which is, imagine how loud it's an SLO above 5 on the master, and in between, like somewhere in between 4 and 6 on the master, it just starts to roar in this way that is like a you know, and I don't know what it is, like something about the circuit of the amp, but you know, and if you change a major, you know what I'm saying, right? Mark Knopfler's left-handed too. I didn't know that. You guys are telling me about all these guys that I didn't know were left-handed. That's amazing. Steve Morse and Mark Knopfler. The only one that I knew that was like somebody that was a well-known guitar player was Rick Emmett, that I always use as an example of like, well, you know, if I had a student or parents that were, say, when back in my teaching days or working in music store days, when somebody would say, should I get my son or daughter's right-handed or left-handed, you know, lefty, should I get a left-handed guitar? And I was like, well, you know, there's these famous guitar players, and I would use Rick Emmett as an example. So it's funny to me, the whole left-handed thing and right-handed thing. I remember many years ago, my first girlfriend, when I lived in LA, she started playing bass, and she actually got to be a pretty good bass player. And she when she first picked up the bass, it's like she picked it up like a lefty, you know, like she just couldn't even imagine holding an instrument the other way. And she'd never even played yet. And I found that really interesting, that she just, oh, this is what feels natural. And it's like, we're doing something that is so unnatural anyway. Playing an instrument with string, it's not like something that we're born to do. We're learning how to do something that's this man-made device that, you know, but she just, that was it. She wasn't going to play the other way. And she didn't even know how to play a note yet. It was like, this is what felt comfortable. And so I guess if, you know, I always thought, well, your strongest hand will be on the neck if you're left-handed, and that could be a great thing. So, okay, there's a few super chats I got to get to here that I'm going to miss out on. Richard's up there, and he didn't ask me anything, but Richard asked me something. I appreciate it. Thanks, dude. And Thomas Wolf says, I'm very uncertain if one of these small 15-watt amps like 5153 LBX, Orange Gym Root, Marshall SC20 or comparable are powerful enough for using with a 412 cab. What do you think? Well, I know of a 15-watt amp. There's one right there, the PT15, and I used it on tour last year in theaters. I didn't use a 412. I used a 212, but it would have sounded great through a 412. Yeah, you can totally use them into a 412. Once again, there is a limit, you know, of if you're used to large, you know, 50-watt amps or 30-watt amps or 100-watt amps, it's not going to be that loud with that much headroom. Is it going to be loud enough, though? You know, that depends on your band and what you're used to. And is it going to, you know, it'll get the speakers moving and it'll sound great, you know, but there can be a thing where, you know, I was fine with the 15 for the band I was playing in. It worked great and it was more than loud enough. And I actually, you know, I couldn't even run it full tilt at the highest gain that I was doing on that gig, though. And this is a classic rock gig, so it was like not super high gain, but at the highest gain and the most kind of aggressive that I wanted it, I was starting to feel a bit of the 15-watt effect. You know what I mean? But it was still great. It was perfect, but it was like I would, you know, if you're playing metal, I would say, and you're playing a 15-watt amp, and it's like you need that, you know, that aggressive whatever. Or if you're John Mayer and you want a loud ass clean amp that's got headroom for your pedals and stuff, and you want that kind of headroom and not to, you know, because he's a clean amp guy. He uses loud, clean amps. It's like the Stevie Ray Vaughan thing, I guess, you know, more loud, clean with headroom with single coils. It's interesting, but you know, there's different. My point is, there's different sort of camps of musicians that require different you know, your expectations are different. 15 watts can be great. I remember the first time it was Stuart Mathis, who's a great guitar player that lived in LA, a really great guitar player and songwriter. Then he moved to Nashville, and I haven't talked to him in years. But anyway, he used to play with a lot of different people, and you know, like touring sideman stuff and whatnot. And I remember him using 2 little orange combos that were like 15 or less, like 5 watts or 10 watts or something, and he would use the 2 of those for, you know, like he was touring with I can't remember who he was playing with, but like big artists, you know. And I was like, he was the first guy I saw use little amps on a big gig, and he's like, you can't play that loud anyway. He's like, it works great, it feels good. And so it just depends, you know, on what you're doing. But you know, okay. Thoughts on the new Guitar Rig 6? I did a video for them. I think it's cool. You know, if you're it's interesting. Guitar Rig is kind of laid out almost like the old school rack, you know, setups, and it's like I guess it shows its age a little bit in that sense because they haven't moved away from that, you know. So it's like it came out originally in 2003 or 4 or something. It's been out forever. So we were kind of coming out of the 90s, and racks and stuff like pedal boards as a thing weren't even really like as being the, you know, it was still kind of almost the rack era. I mean, I was touring back then with racks until 2010. So now everybody's all pedals all the time. But the way they laid it out is kind of like that. So there's that. Once again, the way these things like when I think about these products, it's the ergonomic is the word that, you know, comes to mind, I guess, of like the flow of like how you integrate with it and stuff. So there's that aspect. You know, some of these, you know, newer units like the Helix and stuff. Obviously, I think the Quad Cortex, for those that just joined, I've got one sitting right here. You know, it kind of draws a little bit from maybe the Helix and also maybe the Axe effects and the way that things are laid out in a kind of a signal flow sort of way, as opposed to the rack of, you know what I mean, of Guitar Rig. You probably want to know about the sound though. I think the sounds are really, really good in it. The new cab sims they put in, they sound really good to me. They've updated the cab sim. I think I got some good sounds out of it. All this stuff sounds good these days. You know, I find I can get good sounds and make music with it. If you stuck me with any of these things, if you said make a whole record with Guitar Rig 6, I would do it, you know, or make a whole record with the Quad Cortex. I could do it, or make a whole record with a Super Ona Telly. I would be happy to do that too. Yeah. Excuse me. Why not powerful amps with attenuators instead of small amps, says Billy. Well, some people think that that's just like, you know, like a race car on a dyno or whatever. It's like, you know, people think it's like, why not just use the amp that's the right power and then turn it up, and then you've eliminated the need for the attenuator, I guess. I've got no problem with using attenuators, or rather I use the power station, which is not really an attenuator, it's a load reamp. So, you know, I think that that's it's definitely my favorite device for that sort of thing. But if you like that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. If you like the tone of a powerful amp, and, you know, Eddie Van Halen's the original, like, you know, I like this 100-watt Marshall, but I want to turn it down a bit, so I'll use this big voltage thing that lowers the wall voltage. Oh, that sounds cool. And then you use it, you know, like use whatever you know, maybe the next great big amp tone will be, you know, somebody taking a big amp, but they can't play that loud. So then using it in the power station, and they're like, oh, it's got an effects loop, so I can add that. And, you know, they'll be using an Ampeg V4 or something, and they'll add some cool effect to the loop, and that'll be their tone, and it'll be the next great guitar sound. I don't know. It's all the sum of the parts. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Small amps, big amps into attenuators, whatever, you know. Tips for balancing the volume, both single coil and humbucker guitars for use in the same rig. Trying to avoid boosting my telly for headroom. Well, I think what you just said, like if you want to do it on the fly, a volume pedal can be a cool thing, or a micro amp or a clean boost of some sort. I mean, that's the only way to do it, is really, you've got to use the beyond, you know, you could try a different humbucker guitar It's one thing I learned. I mean, when I did that, it's the reason I moved more towards PAFs, and you can drop them a little bit and not have them so high and stuff. I found that when I started playing it was my Gil Yaron guitar, really. When I got that guitar, and then I could use my I was playing with Melissa Etheridge, and I could use my my Strat. I had my green Sir and my old 64 Strat and my Gil Yaron. That was kind of like the main guitars I was playing with her, I think. God, that seems like a long time ago now. But anyways, I could go to the Gil Yaron and go to the Strat, and I wouldn't have to change the settings on the amp or feel like I needed to, So maybe it's one thing I love about the Thornbucker is how well it balances with single coils. You will find that the Thornbucker with two relatively hot single coils, not low output 50 style, but more like the hotter 60 style in the neck in the middle, and the Thornbucker Plus or Thornbucker in the bridge is an amazing balance for having a humbucker in the guitar. So, but beyond that, yeah, like something like a microamp or similar, Sir Coco Boost or something, a boost that you can clean boost up the single coil guitar a little bit to match the humbucker is a way to go. Or you can use a volume pedal and vary it on the humbucker guitar. But I sort of think that I don't want it to be lossy. I'd rather add, just me. Purposeful Porpoise says best. By the way, Tim Pierce constantly riding the volume pedal in the studio. I've done videos on that and stuff, and I find that interesting. He's all about the volume pedal. He always dials an amp in for edge of breakup, not always, but you know what I mean. Most of his main thing that he does, I think, is that divided by 13, the RSA 23, I think, is an amp that he uses a lot, and he'll dial it up until it's got that great sort of low crunch or edge of breakup sort of sound, and then he just varies the volume on the guitar and varies his pick attack, and that's kind of how he does his thing a lot of the time. Yeah. Richard says, enjoy your show and knowledge. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here. I appreciate that. I know a lot about a very, 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 very small amount of things. And then beyond that, I'm pretty much a fool. No, I do my best. Still trying to learn about other things. Purposeful Porpoise says, best way to get the burst tone is to hook up your Les Paul to a Variac and set it to minus 3,000 volts. Okay, I'm going to move down to the bottom and see what's up here. What else you guys talking about? Pete, was the Les Paul on the Classic Rock Tour yours? Yeah, that was my Yaron, actually. Yeah, I took it out and used it. And thoughts on Duesenbergs, says More Guitars. It seems there's a ton of guitarists using them live that aren't endorsed to do so. Thinking of buying a Star Player TV 25th anniversary. They're an interesting company in that way. Like, you make me think of they get guitars into guitar players' hands, and then a lot of people end up using them. Like, they were definitely around the Chris Cornell camp, and I never ended up with one. I'm sort of sorry that I didn't, because they're pretty cool. But Yogi used to play them, and Chris got one. And I think they even ended up putting out some sort of Soundgarden guitar eventually that was like but Chris would play them sometimes. And they would come to shows. I remember that, like when we were around in Germany, and they were very inexpensive to artists. So they weren't giving away things, I don't think. But I mean, I think I could have bought one at an artist price I don't know, I shouldn't say. But I mean, there was a couple times where it was like, hey, do you want one of these? Because you can get one for such and such. And yeah, maybe. And then I just forget. But I liked them. I thought they were cool. I like the Mike Campbell one. I think they're neat, But I do think that maybe that's their thing, is like get guitars to artists at like artist price, but don't necessarily endorse or something, and then you can get them out there and say, because they do look cool. They're a great, and they sound cool, and they play cool too. I mean, they're a good, solid guitar, but they do have a, if you want that rhythm guitar, Gretschy, or kind of rootsy thing, and you want a vibrato that's not a Fender vibrato, and you want maybe a combination of some sort of humbucker and a P90 or whatever, that's kind of neat in that that sort of sense. They fill that, if they're like the other Gretsch or something, or, kind of a neat thing. And they've been doing it a long time before you saw these other, like Eastwood and stuff like that. So, yeah. Chris says, Chris has got a bold rock statement. He says, people that have tone issues play Tellys and Strats. Buy an SG Les Paul or a V and you will never have tone issues. Well, unless you want to play, like, get that in-between Strat, unless you're Mark Knopfler or something, a cableless Doc Marshall, see AC/DC, Thin Lizzy, or Led Zeppelin. I get where you're going with this. A good flying V and a Marshall, and you should be able to have a whole career. But it will only be that one style of music. You won't be playing neo soul, maybe, but I don't know. Jimmy tried a V only a couple times, I think. He did use a V, just wasn't really him. Like, the V with a fuzz face kind of goes out the window. You gotta use the single coils with a fuzz face. Just depends what you're doing. There's no right or wrong way to do this stuff. Well, sometimes. Excuse me, I burped. Mike Jones sent me a $9.99 super sticker. You guys are too cool. Thank you. Billy, he says, I loved your tube shootout. Sad those old tubes are getting scarce. You can still find them out there. You can. But thanks for watching the shootout. I appreciate it. Hi, is there any difference using an amp at 8 ohms with an 8 ohm speaker or at 16 ohm with a relative speaker? Some people think so. I don't really think it's worth worrying about, is the reality. It more gets into, like, if you like your 8 ohm amp into a 16 ohm cabinet, because it will sound different 8 ohm on you set your amp set correctly or whatever at 8 ohms, and then like into an 8 ohm, and then some people like 8 into 16. Some people like 4 into 8. It'll make your amp, like on my Fender Basement, it drives it's less headroom. It seems to distort more. It's totally safe, everybody says. That one-way mismatch going up, no big deal. Not gonna hurt anything, generally speaking. But it is a different sound. But I like 8 into 8 or 16 into 16. I don't know. I mean, it can matter. Certain things come into play, like that. I guess I don't know. It's a good question. I don't really think so. All things not worth worrying about for most intents and purposes. If you're matching the impedance, an 8 ohm Marshall cabinet or whatever, a cab wired for 8 with certain speakers, and an 8, your amp set on 8, or your amp set on 16 into the same speakers that are 16 ohm, and all other things equal, I don't think you're going to notice that much difference, if any. That's worth worrying about. Mitch is there in the super chat. He says, bought the collider delay reverb based on your video I watch every week and just wanted to say thanks, man. That's a cool unit. One of the only sort of full-featured reverb delays in a pedal. There ain't a hell of a lot of them out there, I find. And I wish there was more, actually, because it's a cool thing for sure. Who is my favorite artist to play live with, says Sean. Chris. No disrespect to anyone else, because I've had great times with everybody, but maybe that was just the most... it's the most at peace I've felt playing live, like the most in my own element. And there was a lot of satisfaction in it. There was a nice combination of requiring a lot of, like concentration and work to get the songs down and be able to play the songs, because some of them are really challenging. Especially some of them are Euphoria Morning material, and it's difficult to do it justice live because of the way that record sounds and stuff. So playing a lot of that music was really challenging, and the songs are really intense. If you haven't heard that record in a while, go listen. But the changes and the figuring out how to do it justice or whatever live, that was challenging. So it was a nice combination of challenging, but also just total. I mean, there was plenty of times where I would just close my eyes on stage, and this is like magic. You're playing like some, I mean, there's like a Zen thing or something when you're playing a riff like Rusty Cage, which is a great riff, and you're locking into it and you're playing it, and you've played it now like maybe on tour for a few months, and so you've played it like 100 times and you're really used to it. And when the band's locking, and if your mix is good and stuff, and you're just kind of like in that zone of like you know, and it was like that. I've never quite felt that on any other sideman gig quite the same. Like the level of, you know, where you're firing on all cylinders and really like, I don't know. It was fun too. It's just so much fun. I mean, being able to play at big rock festivals and stuff and run all over the place, and you know, great crowds. And his energy was always, you know, he was never worried about things like mistakes or, well, unless there was like train wrecks, you know. But I mean, he was really like little things. Doesn't give a shit, you know. It was more about the energy and just bringing it and having a good time on stage, having fun, having like, you know, making it a thing. But there's been plenty of people I've loved to play with. That was just the most satisfying, I think. Other ones are like, you know, playing with Don Henley was like a career, like just to be able to get to that point and play those songs with that guy and be like, you know, like that's, I don't know, always, it was never lost on me when I was playing a gig with him. You had to rise to the occasion because he's like he's a, you know, modern music legend, I guess, you know, Eagles. I mean, it's like you can't play Hotel California with him singing or whatever and not feel the weight of the, you know, of having to deliver the parts. And so there was a satisfaction. It's not always fun because you're not that relaxed, you know, but it's like, it's still really fun. You know, there's moments that were really fun, you know, doing it, but, much different feeling than playing with Chris, you know, but the level of satisfaction you feel, the end of playing a show with him or something and walking off stage and going, yeah, I did that, you know, I did that and we did that and I delivered and executed, you know what I mean? Like the show, it was a real like feeling of personal achievement. That's a nice thing. I don't know how else to describe it. What about mixing two amps like a Rev and a Soldano, says Braxall. Mixing two amps can be a great way to get a sound. I think I was mentioning on the show last week that I had Michael Beinhorn here once, and he always mixes amps. He's like, oh, I never do just one amp at a time. I'm always blending. And I was like, oh, great. Now I got to think about that and get that set up because I kind of never do that in the studio. But less out of, I just don't have unlimited, you know, like, you know, cab room with, you know, multiple cabs and multiple lines going. I do have 2 lines going out there and I could probably set it up, but it's like, you know, I'd need to run 2 more mic lines and that right there. Like, oh God, I don't want to think about doing that. Go and get another, you know, 90 foot of 2 mic cables and figure out how to get it all the way out there. So anyways, does running a tube amp at low home volume put less wear on tubes as opposed to louder volumes, says Joe? Yes, absolutely. The harder you run a tube amp, it's the output tubes, driving them harder and using them more. And if you run, that's one thing to keep in mind with using attenuators of any sort, or, you know, power station, anything like that, or reactive load. If you're cranking an amp all the time, you're going to wear through your tubes, just like if you're playing it loud. It can be easy to forget that you're playing your amp at full, you know, that your amp is really working, right? And when you're playing at home at a lower, if you're used to using attenuators or reactive loads or things, and then you sit there and you can noodle around and practice and do things that, you know, that we normally wouldn't have done through a loud amp. Loud amps were for gigs, you know, or sessions. And now you can sit there for 3 hours and play through the thing and just noodle or learn riffs or whatever. It's like maybe not the greatest idea because you're going to burn through tubes more. And, you know, maybe, you know, when you're practicing or that kind of thing, it's something to keep in mind. That's all, you know, that maybe playing through an amp, not cranked all the time and using them, you know, using a model or using something for that so that you're, you know, it's fine if you want to burn through tubes all the time, but you are going to do that and it's going to cost you dough. And the other thing is that as we, you know, as time marches on, I feel like the knowledge of tube amps gets lost a little bit, you know, like, you know, things like biasing and general sort of tube amp maintenance and things is, you know, there's a lot of questions about amps now that you know, were sort of common knowledge. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying, like, it's good that people ask questions. But like 20 years ago, it would have been common knowledge stuff, and now it's get lost a little bit. One of the things is, you know, that wear and tear on your tubes, and then you're going to have to get to the tech at some point and rebias, and amp techs might not be as plentiful as they used to be and stuff, you know. Anyways, Robert Valdez, before I lose it here in the super chat, he says, how did you get your Melissa Etheridge gig? Did you replace Philip? I did, actually. I didn't replace Philip. You know, there was a fair amount of time between his tenure with her and then when she did a new album, put together a band for tour and stuff. And I'm sure that they're on the best terms and all that kind of stuff, you know, that I think he wanted to go on and do his own thing and stuff. But Philip's an outstanding guitar player. I have great respect for him and his, you know, just he plays a guitar like with a lot of, we're talking about Philip Sace here, my Canadian brother. And we have a really nice, I've never talked to him at length or anything like that, but we have a nice exchange on Instagram and stuff like that now. And I know he says nice things about things that I do. And I have this great respect for him because he's such a monster on the guitar. You know, he's really a fantastic. So, anyways, and, you know, I know she had great affinity for him. One of the moments in playing with her that was most fun for me on the gigs and stuff, because I loved playing with Melissa too. I learned a lot on that gig, and she was wonderful. But playing a song called, I'm not going to remember the name of it now. It's this song where Philip plays this beautiful kind of univibe, bluesy. I'm never going to remember it. It'll come to me. But anyways, and she actually threw it at me at the audition for my callback. She said, can you learn one more song for the next day? And it was when I was doing my callback, and it was that song. And I'd learned all the parts of songs like I Want to Come Over and things where it was like timed dotted eighth delays and all that stuff. She knew I could do all that. She wanted to see if I could improvise. And, you know, and I knew that from when she sent me that track that night. And it was like Philip just going off and playing beautiful, you know, his thing meets Gilmore sort of, you know, stuff. And I thought she wants to hear if I can just play in this style. It wasn't about copying his licks. It was about being emotive. So I always remember that. And I used to have a lot of fun playing that song live because it was this wide open, a lot of things. Well, you know, I learned with her that she would throw a lot of solos at you, and she'd, you know, spontaneously where, you know, it was like, go for it, you know, and she'd want to chill for a minute and just have you go off and jam. She loved to jam and just not have the show be the same every night. And so I had to quickly kind of, you know, rise to that occasion and realize like, oh, like, don't pace yourself and don't repeat if it's a cool phrase, but, you know, don't burn out, you know, too early, and you're gonna have to do it on the next song too. So, you know, it's like, wow, I gotta like expand the vocabulary a little bit, and that's because I hadn't been used to improvising that much on sideman gigs. You know, it was kind of a new thing. So, anyways, yeah. Mike is saying, good to have an option to flip phase of one signal after the split if needed when mixing amps. That's absolutely true. If you're playing two amps 50% of the time, you're going to find like one of them's out of phase with the other one. You'll have to flip that phase. You know, in other words, one speaker is, you know, going out while the other one is, you know, pushing in or whatever, you know. They're going like this sometimes, you know, every time you, I guess, add an amplification stage to an amplifier, the phase flips internally. So like when you change channels on a tube amp, sometimes the phase can flip, and you'll never know this stuff if you weren't playing it with another amp at the same time. So like on the PT100, this happens. I know if you used Chris Cornell, actually, when he was touring with used PT100s on that last Soundgarden tour, and when he wanted to use two of them together, and he would occasionally want to have one on the clean channel, one on the dirty channel, two on the clean channel, let's say, and then he'd want to flip one from clean to dirty. And I was like, when you do that, the phase is going to flip on the one amp that goes from clean to dirty, and it's just something that happens with the amplification stages. That's it. It makes your rig a little more complex if that's what you want to do, because you would have to figure out a way to then flip the phase either at the mic or at the, you know, how do you do that? It's like some sort of MIDI box, MIDI box that is in the loop of the amp that could flip the phase, I guess. Like I don't even know if something like that existed. And I remember we were dealing with that. And I was saying, it might be better to just hit a drive pedal or something, like something that's not, just, it's one of the limitations of tube amps. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just what happens. So anyways, okay. Who's fills his purposeful porpoise? We were talking about Philip Sace. He's a great guitar player. We are all fills, says Jordan. I think that's who you were asking about. Let's see here. I like when the leader gives space for the band to stretch out. I mean, that's one of the most fun parts of music, says T-Mitz. Yeah, and good on Melissa. Yeah, and she used to do that, and I always loved that. And most of the people that I've played with that are, unfortunately, just about everybody I've played with is really good like that. They if you're a rock star or whatever, you realize that, like, you've got to get through a two plus hour with Melissa and Chris. Let's say, it's like 2 hours plus gigs. And, well, part of it is pacing and knowing that it's good to take the heat and the spotlight off yourself for a minute and let someone else go shine for a second. And she lent me the biggest compliment, which I really appreciated. She said that he always knows when to step out and do it, and then when to step back. Because it's her name on the marquee. You know what I mean? But, it's like when to chill the solo, and or whatever, and to feel that. It's that reading the room kind of thing. It's part of being a sideman that I think is really important. Like, they want you to step out there toe to toe with them and be a rock star in that moment, and take you got to be able to deliver to the person in the back row every now and then and do that thing, and then when to let them take over again once that, so it's part of it, part of the side man thing. Let's see, Patrick's up there in the super chat and he says, "You're the coolest." I don't know, I'm a nerd. He says, "I used to put guitar polish on my rosewood ebony necks. I've since stopped, but I've damaged them without knowing. Have I damaged them without knowing what to look for?" I don't think so. I used to do that too. I'd use that GHS guitar gloss stuff because it cleaned fingerboards really well, but I was doing it without really knowing if it was like good for the wood or not. I don't think I ever screwed up my guitar. I mean, I think that anything you did to it, you could probably, at the worst, it would be like, you'd have to, when you're doing a refret, you do a little bit of a plane of the fingerboard and, but I really doubt that I don't think so. I guess it depends on what product you're using and how much you used, but I think it's fine. Different people recommend different things for fingerboards. Like people use linseed oil and stuff, or lemon oil, and things like that to keep them. If the rosewood's looking really dry, like if it starts getting really light in color and really looks dried out, but I'm sure there's some blogs and things out there. You could do some research and figure out what's the best thing to kind of condition your fingerboard. And I think companies make stuff like this now. You go to the Stuart Mac website or to, Dunlop. I know they've got like fingerboard conditioner stuff as part of their guitar maintenance products. Rich Monks is up there in the super chat. He says, "Canadian bands you wish were more popular in the States. For me, New Pornographers, brilliant power pop, incredible songwriting. The Sadies, surf country punk virtuosos." Yeah, for me, I mean, I don't know, I guess Blue Rodeo or Sloan, one of my favorites. God, they just put out a great new song like a couple months ago. It's such a great band. I love Sloan so much. They just make me happy. I recommended it last week, but my friend Jordan put out a great record, Blinker the Star, band I toured with 20 years ago I've got stories, adventures I had with them. But great band, and he put out a terrific new record called Juvenile Universe. Did anybody listen this week? Let me know. Great record. And it sounds like old school Canadian rock and roll to me. Not rock and roll. Okay, so there's an element of it that sounds like Signals or Moving Pictures era, or even into the 80s Rush, but Terry Brown Rush for sure. You know what I'm talking about if you're a Rush fan. There's a sound to it, and as well as Max Webster and Kim. If you're Canadian, you know what I'm talking about. it's a distinctly Canadian sounding record. But Jordan's also got his My Bloody Valentine kind of influences and stuff, and so that creeps in too. So there's a distinct kind of, you know, I don't know, like rock meets prog rock meets art rock meets indie rock. Yeah. Sloan, the way I met those guys and the way that I became aware of them at all was touring with Blink of the Star. We did a month, I think, with Blink of the Star and Sloan. I think it was about a month. It was so much fun. That's where I became a huge fan of Sloan, because I would see them play every night. And yeah. Hey, Pete, can you share any crazy, funny stories of having your gear melt down on you mid-performance or gig? Yeah, that's Kevin up in this top chat. You know, the way that you deal with that is all about you can turn it into a success. I remember the ultimate meltdown was the power going out in the entire venue and the emergency lighting coming on. I had a Chris Cornell gig in Salt Lake City. I think it was Salt Lake City. And I remember it happening, and you know, you're mid playing and then all of a sudden the entire power goes down. You've got in-ears in and stuff. And it's like, it's a really weird experience because you had all this power a minute ago and everything's going, and then and the only thing you hear now through your in-ears is the drums acoustically behind you. The whole PA, everything, all the lights go off. I mean, it's a really shocking experience. It kind of just, what just happened? Like, am I dying? You know, like what happened? And then you realize what happened. And it's in that moment, the whole crowd's like, oh, you know, and it's like, and I remember Cornell, because he was brilliant, looking at Jason, the drummer, and going, drum solo, you know, which was the energy of that band, and his energy was so great, you know, that of course he said that because it's just what he would say. And he was like really smart about that. And so it was really funny. And Jason did a drum solo for like the next 3 or 4 minutes. And, you know, it made the show better. Everybody that went to that show, I guarantee, remembers that, you know, and you know, you could walk off stage and seem bummed out, or you could do that and make it. And then the power came back on, and then we started again. And it was cool. Better. One of the more memorable gigs because, you know, something happened. So that's the lesson, is to turn it around into, you know, something that's positive, I guess. What would I recommend as a good floor monitor to pair with a Helix? I assume in-ears would be the better option. Not necessarily. I mean, it just depends. But a good floor monitor, I like those ones I did a review of recently, the Headrush ones. So worlds collide. But no, they're really nice. Compact, and they sound good. And, you know, with the Helix, you've got different sets of outs. You could even EQ the output for the floor monitors differently than the main outs go into the PA, something like that. You know, you come up with different ways to do that if you need to change the sound. But anyways, I think those are really good. I've always long been a fan of the Atomic ones too. I thought those were really quite good. Atomic Reactor ones, I think they're called. So those are both good. Okay, I'm going to go down to the bottom here of the chat. And Patrick Carroll says Blue Rodeo rules. Yeah, good band. Good band. Canadian bands. I wasn't, like, somebody mentioned New Pornographers. Don't know any of their music, honestly. High Metalworks says Universal Juveniles is a great album. Check this out. Yeah, check out Juvenile Universe too, though. Jordan's album. Obviously a takeoff on the name. Blink of the Star, Juvenile Universe. Give it a listen this week. I love the record. Great new Canadian record. Jordan says that he had a similar experience to mine. Last show I played before the pandemic started, the power in the venue went out. Everyone kept singing along, and the drummer kept playing. It was pretty sweet. Totally. It's fun. Make it fun. It's live. It's part of the live experience. It makes it better. Totally spontaneous, you know. Good stuff. Yeah. The Depot in Salt Lake City, says Tom. Were you there? That's cool. You remember it? That's cool. I'm glad you were there. Glad somebody here was there, including me. Cheers. I like things that sound like Rush, says Brown's fan. Well, you'll like this then. It's not like the vocals or anything, or even his melodies, but you'll hear it in the guitar sounds and the production and the synths and stuff and the drums, and it's got a nice 70s kind of warmth to it. Max Webster was a really overlooked band, and also Saga in that category, says BC Rich 581. Yeah, I had to learn that Saga song when I did a gig with my buddies in Took, the Canadian rock cover band. The guys that play with Slash and stuff, they do this cover band called Took. Some of you might be familiar. Todd Kern singing, he's amazing. But anyways, I had to learn the On the Loose by Saga. That solo is such a bitch, and it's an F. It's like, it was one of the more difficult, like, playing right at the limit of my ability to deliver it properly. That riff. You know what I'm talking about if you're a Saga fan. Shit, it was like doing, for whatever reason, that I don't remember. I couldn't pick up a guitar and play it right now, but I was almost going to do it. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're going to embarrass yourself. But it's hard because of the key that it's in, and we did it in the original key. It's in F, I think, and the stretches are intense. And I think the way the guy originally played it, fingering wise, that riff, I couldn't do it. I was like, this, I have to play it differently on 2 strings, because I think he was playing it across 3 strings. And I figured out a way to play it on 2 strings with more like 3 notes per string patterns, but I had to really stretch. And it was almost like painful to get it. But I did it. Damn it. Keith Johns has to go. He says bye. See you, Keith. He's probably gone already. Max Webster never really got the success I believe they deserved, says Brett. They would probably agree. I think Kim, didn't he write a song about this? Like how he's just cool. Like wait, sorry, we're getting really Canadian here, and we're going to lose all the Europeans and Americans and stuff. But Kim Mitchell, we're talking about, who later went on to have a successful solo career in Canada after his band Max Webster in the 70s. But he wrote some song about it. He's cool with donut shops and hockey rinks and stuff like that, if that's what life means, then, right? Wasn't there a song that came out in like the late 80s, early 90s where it's like, I'm fine with this, just having my career in Canada. I got to meet that guy one day. I've still never met Kim, and I really would love to talk with him. And who out there knows him and can hook me up with him? I want to have him on here. That's what I want to do. And I bet he would do it. I want to have him on Sunday Live and geek out. Just have a Canadian geek out. God, I would love that. I'm going to, Jordan knows him. I'm going to work on this. I just have such a great affinity for him. He seems like a terrific guy. Have you ever owned, or do you own an EVH guitar like the Wolfgang? If so, what is your opinion? I have one. It's right here. Right there. You can see it. There's my Wolfgang. From 2009, I think I got it. It's a quality instrument, man. And it's got a very distinct sound that's great for, distorted, high gain, that kind of thing. And it also sounds good clean too. It's got its own thing. God, the neck is got really dirty, but you never want to clean, it's got all spotty and heavily, it's very stable neck. I think it might have stabilizing rods in it because it's bird's eye. Is it bird's eye? Not really. Bird's eye. No, there's some bird's eye in the fingerboard. It's hard to tell because it's so damn dirty. That's the truth. But it is a separate thing. Yeah, it's got a bird's eye fingerboard with a not bird's eye neck. That makes sense. That's why it's stable. Anyways, great guitar. I think they're really good. It's a distinctive guitar though, like in the sense that the way they sit on your body, I find sitting with it right now. I mean, it's on my left leg, and I find sometimes when I would play it and try and execute, playing some solo or something, I had trouble with it sitting on my right leg. So the way that the body is shaped with its kind of offset where this is, kind of puts the guitar a little further over than most. Does that make sense? So I found I would play it like a classical guitar on my left leg sometimes when I'm tracking with it. Dave Friedman just got one. That new, the body's made of sassafras or something. It's like ash, or, you know, and that guitar sounds great. It's a little lighter. It's a little different sound than the basswood body. It's all black. Very, very nice guitar, and it's got the big frets in it. Because back when these came out, they were doing the little frets, you know? And I just sort of the little frets. I've never changed them, of course. They're stainless steel, so they're still like brand new. But that'd be the one thing in this guitar I would love to get done is get bigger frets put in. I could talk to them about that, about getting it done. And they probably wouldn't do it for me, but I could take it to a tech and have somebody do it one of these days. Anyways, nice guitar. And every now and then I'm tracking and I'm like thinking, you know, oh, that guitar would be perfect for this part. And it's got a nice warm, the basswood, I guess, you know, high gain warm sound. It sounds really good with heavy distortion. So sometimes you'll see it in my videos with like heavier gain and stuff like that. So, but I got that guitar from Ed and from Matt Bruck. I drove up to 5150 and picked up that guitar in 2009. I've got photos of me playing that guitar on the roof of 5150. Pretty cool. Good memories. I went up with Matt, his right-hand man, one day. He's a photographer as well, and he took a bunch of photos of me up there with that guitar. And Frankenstein as well, which I think was a reissue Frankenstein. I don't think it was a real one. I didn't really ask him. I was too scared. But they're cool pictures anyway. A Frankenstein on the roof of 5150. Dig it. Tiny frets, no thanks, says William. You know what? It still works on that guitar. It doesn't really bother me. I would just prefer the bigger ones, but the way that it is it's like, you know, it works. Sassafras is weird for a guitar, says Dean. You know, it sounds good. It kind of reminds me of ash on the light side, like not on the light, medium, or you know, it's got that slightly scooped sound with a real nice acoustic kind of quality to it, like lots of resonance and stuff. Stealth Parrot says thoughts on scallop frets. I kind of like them. I liked them when it first came out, and I scalloped a guitar once with a rasp. I did the whole thing, you know, totally. And it turned out okay. I went a little too far with almost lost inlays in a couple, but I like it. I wouldn't do it all the time. It'd be cool to have one guitar around. I'd love to have an Yngwie signature or whatever with that. Just to have. Where's the Lake Placid Blues, sir? That's my home guitar. It's the one guitar I keep at home. It's beautiful. It's a really nice guitar to just sit on the couch and jam with. So, yeah, I used to have a bunch of guitars at home, you know, and here, and I used to make videos at home and stuff. Now I just work here. I don't do that at home anymore, really. When I go home, I make food and sit in my chair and watch the television. It's kind of true. It's about all I do. Yeah, and then I come to work and do everything else. Yeah, I'm looking for a blackface style amp. Will you help me make the decision? Let's see if we can help out Cup of Noodles. Considering a Cerbella, I don't know if a Cerbella is exactly blackface. It's its own sort of thing with its sort of Dumble-esque, you know, big, bold, clean. It's a little bit more mids, you know, a bit less scooped sounding. If you're looking for a super reverb or something. 2 Rock Tone King, or taking the easy way with a 65 Deluxe Reverb reissue. You know, I mean, it depends on what sound you're looking for, I guess. Like a Deluxe Reverb to me is a certain volume, and you know, they're almost never truly clean, although they sound clean. But they get into, you know, by the time a Deluxe is at 3, and especially if you use any humbuckers or anything, it's starting to get pushed and it's got a bit more sag, right? Compared to, say, like a Super or something, which can be a little more clean and sparkle and slightly different. It's got a mid-range pot, and then there's the Twin, which is just big and bold. So what sort of flavor of, you know, are you looking for? The Bella is a fantastic amp, and it's got a big, bold, clean thing, but it's a bit, like I say, it's a bit more mid-forward, which can sound great with pedals. And it's got that really tunable top end with the 3-way bright off, position 1 and 2. 2-Rock, I played one. Tone King and 2-Rock, both really nice amps. Don't have a lot of experience with them, to be honest. I played 2-Rocks once at LA Sound Design here, but I know they've got a great reputation. It's, I would actually worry more about the type of what you consider the sound in your head that you're going for. Like when you say blackface Fender, is it super reverb or is it deluxe reverb? I would worry more about that than I would about whether it's a 2-Rock or Tone King variant of those designs. And think about the power hand. I think these are all great options. Think about the power handling and the amount of sag you want more than, and then look at the offerings from the different companies and figure out how to nail it down, 2-Rock is the gear page approves has been. I'm playing my old 2-Rock Classic 50 right now. Serial number 59. Wow, that is early, isn't it? Okay. What else we got here? You guys are talking about WD-40. Preston says, sorry I'm late. Was a long night of no sleeps. That's okay, man. We all, you got to party every now and then. No, maybe you were working. I don't know. Have you tried the Soldano SL030, says WW Land? Yes, I have. I did try it. I guess you're going to ask me what I think of it. It's cool. I went with the 100 just because it did the thing that I was like, oh, yeah, that thing. I listened to them both. I chose the 100. Not to say there's nothing wrong with 30. Obviously, people get great results. I just decided to go with the 100. Why not just get a blackface Fender, says Jesse, to the fellow that was asking about Fenders. That's true. There is that aspect of like, I've seen super reverbs and stuff out there for really relatively inexpensive, like 60s ones. It seems like they're kind of like come down, which I'm surprised at because Marshalls and stuff haven't. But like, under $2,000, like I think you could probably find one for $1,500, which is like, well, that's what a new one costs. So I can get a 65 for that much. Like I've seen them. I guess people just don't want to carry them because they're big and heavy. I think it's down to that. Like smaller amps became more popular, and a 410 that is they're a bear, but God, do they sound good? A 410 super reverb that's maintained. Well, I did a video on the Amps in the Zone video. You can hear that one. It's an unbelievable, great sound, Jay says, Richie Blackmore invited me out for a drink. Did you go? What did you guys talk about? Scallops? I'll have the scallops, please. The scallops on frets 21 to 24 on a gem work really well, says Mark. Yeah, I always thought that was interesting. That they did that. I've got actually scallops on my Scala. Scallops on my Scala. My Leo Scala guitar has scallops on the last few frets. I think that's in here too. You want to see it? Guitar show and tell. Why not? Do you guys know? Let's give Leo some love. He's a guitar builder in the LA area. Richard Fortis has some of his guitars. I've got this guitar. Some other folks play his guitars. He's really an artist, and every guitar is a little bit different. He's not this guitar is actually tame in comparison to some of the ones, but you can see all the metal work and stuff that he does. He does some really crazy stuff on some of his instruments. It's pretty wild. You can see that it's kind of on like a raw finish situation, except on the top where it is finished. And then this guitar has this. Yeah, it's a cool guitar, right? I know what you're thinking. You're like, damn, that's a pretty cool guitar. It is a pretty cool guitar. And you can see the vent in the top. See how there's the holes there? So it's sort of got a somewhat of a chambered hollow. Not too much, just a little bit, but it's pretty badass. I got to play this guitar more. Look at it. It is freaking cool. You see the metal work around the switch and all that. Like he does all that. He makes that stuff. So this one, like I say, is pretty tame. He's got other ones that have like, inlaid skulls all the way around and stuff and really crazy, but very rock and roll and kind of cool design. It's got a great neck, this guitar as well. See the frets are scallop. Can you see the scallops in the last three? I think. And one thing I really liked about this guitar when I got it, this guitar became kind of the main guitar that I used a lot for when I first started playing with Kiyoshi Nagabuchi in 2014. When I first went over there, the first year I played this guitar, and I just gotten it, and literally gotten it the day I got it, I think, or maybe the next day. I thought, all right, I'll send this guitar off, and I put it in my vault and sent it to Japan to use. And I thought, I don't know if I'm going to bond with it or whatever, but it ended up being the guitar that I played the most, I think, on that tour for a Les Paul kind of rock machine when I wasn't using, one of my Surs or a more Strat type guitar. And it just, what I was going to say was the scallops and then the frets. It's got 6100s, and it felt like I could really grab onto this guitar and not, you do know what I mean? Like you're running around it, because it's a very physical gig. There's a lot of running around going on that gig. And my hand feels like it's glued to the neck on this guitar with the great big frets. And so, since we're talking about big frets and scallops and stuff, and big frets versus small frets, I like that feeling of the string really hanging under your fingers with big frets, where it's like, and you can really vibrato, and I don't know, there's your hands on the neck, and like really, you got that connection or whatever. So this guitar is nice that way. Yeah. Lonnie says the Les Paul shape looks super classy without the toggle switch. I dig it too. I know it's kind of cool, right? The switch down there, definitely unique. So pretty fun. And his aging is cool and stuff too, I think. He does a really good job. I love 6100, says John. I do too. That thing is beautiful, says WW Land. Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, this is metal, like, and he makes all this stuff. He's really good with metal work, and you can look at his website and see some of the crazier stuff. He does really cool, sort of Fender derived shapes and stuff too. But it's pretty fun. Yeah. What else we got here? Let's see. My 95 Parker Fly Deluxe. I remember those. Kind of plays like it is Scallop. Too much pressure on the frets and it will go out of tune. Yeah, I don't find that with scallops and stuff. I never had that, like where you had to play with lighter pressure. Some people talk about that. I never really ran into that, like where it was not enough to be an issue anyway. But V-Boss is there in the super chat. He says, Pete, I just heard you talking about underrated guitar players sometime back. Please try and get Keith Scott. Oh, I love Keith. And, I guess I think he's around, like maybe lives in California somewhere, I think, and stuff. And my friend plays bass with my friend Saul. He plays bass with Bryan Adams. And I gotta hit up Saul and actually talk to him about that, because I guess he watches my channel and stuff sometimes, which is amazing for me because I love his guitar parts. And so he said, "Oh yeah, Keith knows about you. He loves your videos and stuff." So it's like, wow, that's amazing, because he's really cool. I like Keith too. I would love to have him on the show or something. I need to get more, just more into it, but into finding, some of these folks that, and I will. Dominic is asking about the Marshall head behind me. It's a 7250 watt JMP. This is a good old super lead style. I guess super lead is the 100 watt designation, but whatever, you know what I mean. It's got that super lead circuit front end. Thoughts on the 594 or PRS in general? I like PRS in some ways. I've had a couple over the years, and I had a McCarty that I really liked. I always like the ones that are a little more traditional Les Paul. So I don't really know the 594. I think that the SE guitars are really good value. Like they have nice feeling necks. I think they did the overseas thing right. Like for the most part, I think they really execute well on those guitars and stuff. So that's all the good stuff. I'm not as so much as into the the classic, the first one, the 24 fret with the 25-inch scale and stuff seemed like a real kind of hybrid guitar. I never really got it. I have no bearing on what that guitar sounds like in my mind, but that doesn't mean anything, just. It was never really they make beautiful guitars. I played one at the GitCon event. There's video of me playing it, actually. a couple of years ago. Like there's a video up on YouTube of where I was sitting with a fellow and he was playing my guitar and I was playing the PRS because he was there with the PRS. And I was like, well, this is a really, really nice guitar. Like I hadn't actually picked one up in a long time, and just the neck, and it's like I was quite impressed with it. So I have great respect for them. I like David Grissom when he plays one, you know. Okay, what else we got here? Thomas says, I need your advice. Which power amplifier I should use for my FM3 with a Bogner 412? Is my orange pedal baby good enough? It might be, you know, it depends on what you're going for. Power amp does affect the tone. And, you know, I've used everything from tube power amps to you know, Matrix are real good for guitar. A Matrix would probably be pretty cool, I would think, if you want to go solid state. There's kind of no substitute for like putting some tubes in the chain, I still feel like, and getting a bit of that going. Like when I was running an Axe-Fx, I used an atomic power amp. It was a 50 watt aside tube. And I used that for a Melissa Etheridge run where I couldn't bring my whole rig. So I would rent 412s, and I had a 4-space rack with a 2-space tube power amp and an old Axe-Fx Plus or Ultra or whatever, Axe-Fx Ultra. And that worked well. I just used it with the foot controller from the Axe-Fx or whatever, and I duplicated my patches in the Axe. So I was kind of doing a Ty Tabor thing, which I had read that he was running speaker simulators to the front of house out of the Axe-Fx. You know, so one chain and two left and right output with the IRs on them, and then he would run a split chain with no speaker simulators out to the power amp and a real cabinet on stage. So it wasn't mic'd. I think they did mic it, but they didn't end up using the mic signal that much, I don't think. Or, you know, if the cab on stage, maybe he did. I don't know. Great sound guy on that tour. It was Kevin, who did sound for Journey and also did, you know, I think he recorded the Escape album. But anyways, he was the guy doing sound on that tour. Also used to work with Leonard Skinner, and I believe was in the Leonard Skinner Awful Plane Crash. It's true. The connections in this business, it's crazy. Rock and roll history. Anyways, I guess I'm recommending that if you can go for it, try something with tubes that's 50 watts aside or something like that. You know, you can't go wrong with a, you know, VHT or, you know, Fryette or something like that. Some kind of, you know, with an Axe-Fx, it just tends to be really cool, but you probably don't want to do that. So try your orange might be fine. I'm a fan of the Matrix, you know, whatever the 800 and the 1000. I have a Matrix 1000 that's like 3 channels actually. That's a really good solid power amp, I feel like, for us. Other ones, a MOSFET, you know, a good old MOS valve, like from remember that company, MOS valve power amps. Those things sound good, really good. If you can find one of those used or something, not so heavy. I used to have an H&H V200. That was cool, but it crapped out eventually. Would love to hear an interview with Dan Huff, says Mark. He's a legend. Definitely. Yeah. Speaking of heavy amps, I have a DC-30 combo. I'm getting too old to pick it up, says Tom. They are heavy. It's true. Ever worked with Tom Bukovac? No, I've never. I only became aware of him through his recent YouTube posts, but he's a great guitar player, and I enjoy his videos are really cool. And his advice is really good. I like his kind of take on like what's important, you know, Bukovac's take on like, you know, like you know, he talks a lot about like just sort of melody and finding good parts and like how that translates across different styles of music. Doesn't really matter what you're doing. Like that's always, you know, like the same stuff always translates, and what people are really looking for, you know, like the important stuff, you know, like taste, touch, feel, melody, you know, like that'll always be it's music, you know, so it always comes back down to, you know, forget the sports and the aspect of it and the flash and not the flash is cool sometimes, but you know what I mean? That could be the right thing to do, I guess. In a certain, by flash, I mean, you know, some kind of flashy lick or whatever. But I like his take on just, you know, sort of being musical and how that translates overall I think that's in my experience, sound advice. Yeah. Somebody says Mike says his playing is impeccable. Yeah, he plays great. It's easy to see why he gets calls and as an in-demand dude, his energy is real cool and he comes up with great stuff. So he seems to have a good, I always say to my friend Blair, worrying about the right shit, like Blair gets this. He was the drummer that played with Melissa Etheridge when I did it. He's played with a bunch of people, but he's got a great Instagram channel, great YouTube as well, by the way, Blair Sinta. Sinta. Search for him if you're a drummer. Get your drummer friends to search. He does a lot of videos about how to get. He's really into trying to get different drum sounds and creative with miking and compression and different. All this. I always tease drummers like, "What are you guys talking about when you get together? Felt beaters? You guys talk about oil-filled heads, double brace stands, geeks." Because we all talk about what we talk about, but but the things that he's into about getting tons of different sounds. He's just got a really, I feel like he's underrated and he needs to get more love on his channel. But when he plays, you can see him play on his channel. He closes his eyes and and he's like, I always say he's like worrying about the right shit, worrying about, not about fills or flash, he's just like making a groove. He is like so dialed into groove. And those are always my favorite drummers, yeah. Mike says, huge thanks for throwing in that JJ ECC 83 MG in your tube shootout. I've been curious about how that compared. Yeah, it was just kind of like a lower gain version of their tubes to me. My favorite new ones, for those that watch the tube shootout, if you haven't watched the tube shootout, go watch it after and drive yourself insane trying to hear differences between 12x7s. And you will hate the riffs that I'm playing by the end of it because it's 21 times that you hear the same thing. But I love the old stuff for sure. The Mullards are always great. Can't go wrong with one of those, but unless they fail. But new stuff. Most impressed with the new EH. I thought sounds really good. 7025. It's a really nice tube. And the good old Sovtek LPS. Really good, although they don't work in every position on some amps. So, they will fail actually in the cathode faller of a Marshall. You can't use them. I like the new Mullard too. Is similar, kind of a long plate. Sort of looks similar. I wonder how close they are because they come in the same damn factory. But yeah. Nigel says Ty's Recto Sound 93-94 live was his best. Ooh, that's controversial. If you're a Ty Tabor fan, I love that sound, Dogman era. But some would say that the good old Lab was, he's got a great ear for tone. So he's not going to get a bad guitar sound. That guy, But it was so unique, was what it was with the Lab series and everything. It was so unique. Such a neat sound, really unique. So. What else we got? Do you enjoy using ring mods, says Eric? Not really. But seems like they take a special kind of guitarist. Steve Stevens is really good with a ring mod. He's great at using stuff like that and getting cool, creative stuff. Yeah. Chris Quire says Eddie used a solid state power amp. That's true for, reamp after 84 and all that. And when the H&Hs came in. They were MOSFET though. That's why a good H&H V800 MOSFET or MOSFET designs are generally pretty tubey. TubeWorks, that was it. TubeWorks MOS valve, says Wyatt. I think that's yeah. Ty's L5 sound does it for me. Please do a deep dive into that tone, says Mark. I should, because I have the L5 here, but the only problem is you really need the guitar. And I have sort of access. Sir has one of the pickguard assemblies for that style guitar. And you're right, I should just do it, shouldn't I? There's a guy that already kind of did it, though. And he's funny. He's like a really casual dude on YouTube that just kind of like nails it. But he went all the way. He's got the right guitar, and he's got the L5, and he's got the EQ, and a couple other things that were like, it was like an MXR flanger or something, I think. I did a show with Ty where he talks a lot about there was really a lot of great information. And he wasn't. Did you see my interview with him? If you guys haven't seen it, I did an interview with Ty Tabor. You can find on my channel easily by searching. And he really, gives up the keys to the kingdom. I mean, he talks about the effects and modulated delay and stuff. That by the way, I hear they're mixing the King's X album right now, and Doug's been putting up posts and stuff. And oh god, I can't wait to hear new King's X. It's gonna be cool, super cool. Brian says, where do I buy Mullard and Bugle Boy tubes? There's some NOS tube dealers out there where you can still find them, but they're really expensive. Somebody mentioned KCA. You could check with them. Yeah. Do you have any effects that you find inspiring to noodle jam with, but never found a way to fit into a song, says Matt? Not really. No. I mean, if I find them inspiring to noodle and jam, I'll generally be able to write a riff with them or something. I mean, that's kind of my MO, is coming up with the riffs and the tunes surrounding, what pedals do and tones and things. So it's like, I got to be able to figure out something. But if it inspires you, you should be able to use it in a tune, Yeah. What else are you guys talking about here? Let's see here. Was amazed to hear Michael Sweet use the LabTech L5 for the early Striper stuff. There is something about that mid-range. That's interesting. I never heard that. Yeah, you got to kind of turn the mids. I think the mids are on 10 on it, right? I got my L5 over there. I should play it again. I haven't used it in a while. Like I say, I want to get the guitar, and then if I can get a guitar or the pickguard assembly, it's got the right thing, and then I'll play the Ty thing. But if you set it up just right, because Ty says that too. He says that in the interview I did with him, that like if it's got to be set up just right, or it can sound horrendous, But if you put it in just the right, why don't I just get off my ass and take a look? I'll tell you what the setting is, because you can't see it because there's too much gear in here to know. Let me see. Volume's on 10. Yeah, the treble and mids are cranked, with the frequency knob for the mids being almost, it's about 3/4 of the way up. And then the bass I've got on 4. So it's the volume, the mids, and the treble on basically are cranked. And I think that's how Ty used it, with the mid frequency just right at about 3/4 of the way up. And the compressor and all that's off. Who else we got here? We got Aristo up there in the top chat. He says, hello, Mr. Thorn. Hello. Have you ever tried humbuckers with Alnico 8 magnets? What is your opinion? I haven't, but I'm about to, because getting a little closer to doing this EVH pickup video where we compare 40 million different pickups. And we've got a set of the original Super 70s with Alnico 8s to put in my Destroyer, which the damn guitar sounds so good as it is right now. It's got these TV Jones pickups, because the guy from TV Jones owned the guitar before me, and before the previous owner 25 years ago. It's going to say that those pickups in it that sound great. I don't know what they are, but they sound really good. So I'm somewhat hesitant to switch out the pickups at all, but of course I will, just for the video. That's the whole purpose. Probably put the other ones back, but so yeah, and I know I think Phil X's pickups use those Alnico 8s, right? Tabor was on the last Drills album on No Woman of Mine. Was he? I didn't know that. I need to listen to that. I missed a Robert Valdez top chat. Well, let's go find it. Sorry, Robert. Where is it? God, I'm starving right now. I gotta eat something soon. I forgot to eat this morning. How did you actually get that Melissa Etheridge gig? I got it. Okay. They called a friend of mine to audition on bass, and he already had something else going on, so he couldn't do it at the time. But he was nice enough to ask, are you also looking for guitar players? I said, yeah, we're looking for a whole band. So he passed on my name. So that was how it first started. But then also I'm buddies with John Shanks, who was her guitar player, producer, co-songwriter and stuff for a long time. And so once my name was in the hat, John really said, you should get this guy, you know? And so I auditioned, and he kind of really put in a good word for me. So it was a combination of all of that. Audition and then a callback. It was a pretty quick process. It was about a 4-day, like, did an audition, did a callback the next day. A day or so went by, then she called me at home and said, so I want to hire you. It was very nice the way she did that personally. It wasn't like a manager or something. She phoned me. And then that feeling carried on through my tenure for the next couple of years, which was very nice. I love that woman. She's the greatest. Really just a nice person, nice folks all around her. Good feel, you know. Her fans are really nice. It's like a great vibe. Would love to play with her again, actually. Do something else with her. I enjoyed it. You know, had a nice family kind of feel to it, for sure. This is an interesting question. Jordan says, can you talk about any times you played in a venue that wasn't really a venue, like a basement show or an abandoned building or something weird like that? I can remember playing a club in Paris that was like underneath, it was right beside the Seine, and it was like a real like dank kind of like, felt like we were in a dungeon or something. That was weird. It was like, you know, when you walk along, anybody's ever been to Paris, and you walk along the river, and you're at the kind of down at the level of the river, and you can walk along there and go under the bridges and stuff. And there was a club there that was like under one of the bridges, I think is what it was. And it was like iron gates, and in there was a rock bar. It was the first gig I did there with Chris Cornell. It was in this weird venue. It's very strange. Other venues that aren't really venues. I mean, recently I played it. I mean, it's a venue, but it's like kind of a unique venue. I played a couple with Michel Polnareff in France. Once again, in France. You come across interesting places in France, I guess, or in Europe in general. But, 2,000-year-old Roman era Colosseum. Where the heck was it in France? It was in the south of France. So I can't remember the name. But anyways, I could go back and look. There's actually a video, come to think of it, on YouTube where I'm demonstrating. I did it for 2 Notes. So I think it's on their channel. But if you look up, Pete Thorn, 2 Notes, France, it'll pop up, and you can see this beautiful venue. It's like this gorgeous, old, and they, still use it to this day. So, where else? Basements, sure. I can remember playing with Blinker the Star, a band that I talked about earlier, and we would go like to house parties and things. Those guys were so like kind of indie rock in a way. So after a gig, you'd meet some fans or something after, and they'd be like, wow, we love you guys or whatever. Hey, what are you guys doing now? You want to come over? We're having a party. And Jordan would be like, yeah, let's go. And you'd find yourself in a car with like a bunch of fans or whatever from the show. And you drive out to the suburbs. And I can remember a house party. I can remember one house party, like playing, like jamming or playing or something. And then like my guitar tech ending up like completely naked in the hot tub outside. Like I was like, it's probably time to go. Like this is disintegrating into it. It's like, put your clothes on. What the hell are you doing? Have some decency. No, it was just rock and roll, whatever. It was like college party situation. It felt like, it was like, but anyway. I sound like I'm too uptight. No, it was fun. We had fun in that band. Like crazy, weird places where you'd find yourself, like I said, just road stuff. Anybody that's ever been on the road knows, where else? Weird venues. I'm trying to think. I did a lot of like well, okay, it was a venue, but it was weird to play with him. And there's video of it on YouTube as well. I did a radio thing with Chris Cornell up in Big Bear. So just outside LA, an hour and a half, it was a ski lodge, and we're like playing in a bar. Like, I remember he was like, he wasn't like overjoyed about it. Like it was cool when we had fun, but he was kind of like, why am I doing this? It was like a thing for KROQ or something. It was like, probably where like It was a contest that they'd put on. It was like, I think that's what it was. It was like winners for a contest. And so it's the two of us sitting on stools, like two guys like the two fools on stools playing in the ski lodge. That was weird. I mean, with him, it was kind of, but it's pretty cool. It sounds good. I mean, there's crappy, cell phones weren't what they are now. So it was like the cell phone video. But you can see it on YouTube. Let's look for Chris Cornell Big Bear. You'll find that one. Weird. That's enough of those. That's as many stories as I can think of for now. What else we got here? You never woke up naked on a strange living room floor? No. I don't think that's ever happened. No, I'm boring. What happens on the road stays on the road. Looks like it was the Showcase nightclub in Paris. That could be. That's Wyatt. Yeah, it was just a strange, like, interesting venue, Yeah. Let's see. Whose idea was it for Melissa and you to play your guitar at the same time? That was Melissa's idea. She's like, okay, I'm going to do this thing where I like, I'm going to come over and, I'm going to like play on your guitar and play like some, while I was taking a solo. I was like, all right, it's always fun. Neems. That's right. Mr. Zosh says that must be, that was the venue in France, southern France. That's right. That's correct. Gorgeous place. And I did a couple other with Michel Polnareff. Somebody says Polnareff is great, one of the best French pop musicians. He's a riot and wonderful. He's a legend. And I had a lot of fun with him. A lot of fun. I'd love to go back and do more in France. God, I miss France. I was thinking about it the other day. It really hit me last night while I was doing the dishes in the kitchen. Like my routine has been, like all of us, everybody's going through it. And just my personal experience in the past year of doing this routine of coming to and from here, doing what I do, and I enjoy it, and it's okay. And I'm really glad that I've got the ability to do the stuff that I do. But man, like when I think about that every day, I used to be, recently, like, doing things like be in France, and get up for breakfast, go and find some coffee somewhere wonderful, and then walk to, and then like, you'd end up playing a show that night. And then how did we even travel on that tour? Was it by bus? I don't even remember. Oh no, it was TGV usually. And then you get on the train the next day and, 180 kilometers an hour to the next city or whatever, and and then you're in Lyon, and where should I go for lunch and go for, and it's different stuff every day with people and experience and culture, and a different crowd every night and stuff. And like that, those great experiences. And then I'm in Switzerland, and then I'm in, here and there and playing, and just now it's just a here and home, here and home, here and home. Time to do the dishes. Time to get up. Probably time to go to work. Let's watch the news and see the chaos. Let's see what's going on with, life's really weird this year, right? God, man, crazy. But I guess that's how adaptable we are. Hopefully, miss playing in my band, says the Duder. Man, me too. Just checked out Big Bear, says Jay. Yeah, man. That's a crazy gig. It was fun. Pete, will you ever do a video on how you arrange your rhythm tracks? You've told us what software you use till you're blue in the face, but it would be cool to see how you structure verse to chorus. I guess I can do that. I know I always say that, but I should do a video on like how it would be more than just like one video though, it'd be like how do I do drums? How do I approach it? So I know I should do that. I played a fitness center once for a birthday. Very strange. Hard rock band. A fitness center. That's wacky. I like it. Yeah. Do you have any old Jacksons or Charvels? I do. I've got my old Jackson. I showed it, I think, last week. It's in the other room. I don't think it's in here. Where is it? Is it in here? I don't want to bore anybody though, showing the same thing again because it's in the other room. But yeah, it's my guitar that I grew up really practicing on from the time I was like maybe 15, 16 until I was like 19 or 20 was that Jackson. So I shedded on that. What's that crappy old tavern in Evergreen, Colorado? I saw Buddy Miles there. Old undies hanging from the ceiling. I don't think I've ever been there. We played the Belly Up with Chris Cornell in Colorado in Aspen. That was crazy. 300 people. One of the more fun, gigs. Like, it was that kind of stuff, those little clubs. I remember doing a gig with Chris too in Banff at a bar. That was cool. Like, he would go anywhere and do that stuff, he would go and play in these little places and really have fun. He liked it, and it was always really fun. He loved to play. Yeah. Jordan says, that's awesome. Thanks for a great answer. Where is Yogi now? Yogi, he resides at least part of the time over in Croatia, actually. So he married a nice Croatian girl, and he's part Croatian. And so anyway, he spends a lot of time over there now. Seems to really enjoy it. But he comes back here too. Yeah. Okay. To the bottom of the chat. What is this? 1:38. I guess it's about time to go. Been here a couple hours. A couple more questions, and I'm going to split for the week. Yeah, I love 300-person shows, says the feel button. Yeah, and a nice size, smaller, that's tight and it's fun. You get out there, and especially when it's somebody like Cornell, it's a special thing. It's like seeing the Stones or something in a venue like that. I can imagine would be, it just feels like very special when you're in a smaller venue. I mean, even seeing McCartney at Budokan was amazing. I saw him there a few years ago, and it's not a big place. It's about an 8,000 capacity sort of place. So it's not this big arena or whatever. You feel like you're closer in no matter what. And it's like, oh, this is a special show in a smaller venue. So yeah, 300 people in a club with a cool, it's always a neat and fun, feels special. Everybody's excited to be there, and it's hot and sweaty and rock and roll, always fun. Saw BB King at Harpo. I saw BB in Edmonton, and I always think about the size of the place that I saw him. I was right up at the stage, and it was kind of a supper club kind of vibe, like probably the size of the Iridium or something in New York. But it was in Edmonton, and I went with my dad, and it's a great memory because I was about 13, I think, and really into guitar, and my dad went with me, and my dad really enjoyed it too, I remember. And it was just a really, really fun night. That's my memory of it. Just one of those moments. Me and my dad saw some good shows together. Not a lot, but it was like, I remember going to see George Jones with him. That was nice too, because I like George Jones. My dad was a big country music fan. I like George's son. The songs are like the stories. He rips your heart out, It's real country music. And my dad, it was fun. Yeah, I remember he was really funny too. He was getting up there. He was in the 70s or something. He was like, well, here's another song about drinking. He was great. Really, really fun. Great stories. And saw Frank Marino at Harpo's. Harpo's is pretty damn big though. I mean, I was just there a couple of years ago. And that place is like, it's like this epic. It's got a small bar feel, but it's a big bar. It's got a small dive feel in a great big venue, doesn't it? I don't know how else to describe it. Who would you like to interview next? Rick Beato was right about your Peter Frampton interview. Really well done. Okay, I'll get on it. I'm sorry. I gotta get on it. I know. Like I said, I'd love to have Kim Mitchell. Wouldn't that be great if I could get him to do it? If he would be so obliged, I would love to do that. So, best concert I've ever been to. Oh God, that's hard to say. Somebody asked and I lost the question. Sorry, I didn't say your name, but best concert I've ever been to. Dude, I don't know. I saw so much great stuff in the 80s, and then like in recent years, okay, one that came to mind that is one of the most mind-blowing concerts I've ever been to. I'm not going to remember his name, unfortunately, but I went to a show, and it was at a venue on the UCLA campus, and it was the number 2, I guess, sitar player in the world, and he was playing with a tabla player. And this was a long time ago, and I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, but anyways, it was just music I wasn't familiar with is the point. I didn't even really know what I was doing going to the show, but I thought that sounds interesting. I'd love to go see somebody that's supposed to be really good at sitar, and which is an unbelievably hard instrument to play, and you kind of devote your life to it is what it is, And this guy had done that, and he came from a long family of musicians that, and so there was a sort of that family lineage there. And he blew my mind. He played about, it was a couple hour show at least, and he played about half the time with a tabla player and half the time solo. And the stuff he was doing, I had never heard anything like that in my life. And I love that with music because it reminded me maybe of when you first hear music and you're 12 or 13 or 14, you start to get your mind blown by whatever you're into. You know what I'm talking about, that special period. And this guy, when you don't know what's going on, because you can't, because with a lot of music now, I can listen to it or see a guitar player or whatever, and I'm like, even if it's really technically crazy or whatever, like, okay, I can sort of see what he's doing and I understand like where that, but you know, when you don't understand that and you're seeing it, it blows your mind for the first time. I feel the same way sometimes when I see flamenco guitarists because I don't understand what they're doing with the right hand. It's amazing. This guy was like that on where he would hit one note and bend it on the sitar, and he would hit like 10 pitches, a whole melody, and you could hear every note off one attack. And you'd be like, how does he have that kind of control over the bends? It was unbelievable, you know? And I remember him just, it was spellbinding what this guy was doing on an instrument to me. And I remember that he was well aware kind of maybe by midway through the show that a lot of people in the audience, maybe this was their first time experiencing what I was experiencing, seeing somebody play this instrument like he was. And it turned into almost like a clinic. And I remember him saying, like, at one point, like playing and hitting a note and doing this thing and saying, okay, what I'm doing right now is very difficult. I remember him saying that on the mic, you know, and kind of, it was almost like a clinic, and it had this great vibe. But anyway, that was one of the shows where I was like, wow, that was totally unique. And I've never seen anything quite like that. But I remember lots of great shows. What do you think of April Wine? I liked them. I saw that. That's the one show I saw in the 80s. I remember seeing April Wine. I don't know if it was, I want to say maybe they were opening for Journey, but I don't think that that's right. I think it was a headline April Wine show that I saw. Some great tunes. Ding, 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 ding. I mean, come on, some cool stuff, you know. Just Between You and Me, great ballad. Okay. What else here? What else? George's voice is truly amazing live. Glad I got to see him, says Mike. Yeah, he was wonderful, George Jones. I like to rock. Some like it hot, baby. I like it. You like it. I like to rock. Hell yeah, April Wine. They did that one video in the studio, right? Where Rush did their videos. Did Rush do theirs first, or did April Wine do that? I guess Rush probably did it first, right? And then April Wine was like, "Oh, that's cool. Let's copy that." Yeah. Okay. Sign of the Gypsy Queen. She's a Roller. That's a good one. I remember doing She's a Roller with Took. That was cool. With the guitar solo, all, you know, playing off one another. Dueling guitar solo. Okay. What else? Well, I think it's time to go. I feel it's time to wind down. Also, I'm super hungry. I'm going to get out of here for a few minutes and go get some lunch somewhere else. I was in this room a lot yesterday and the day before, and I'm going to take a little break, go get some food, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to work on, for those that didn't see it at the beginning, there's a quad cortex. Here it is, real life and size. I shall be working on this, as well as I have to make an Amplitube 5 video, so I'm going to do a video for that. I've got videos coming for Sackless pedals from Greece. Got to work on that. A new Celestian speaker. Got to work on that. STL tones plugins. I got to work on that. It's a lot of like modeling and plugins and things like that. So some new music coming soon where I do those multi-part song video type stuff. That's going to happen. Thanks to all of you that did the super chat. I really appreciate it. And also, of course, down in my link below, I always have to mention, I got my affiliate link down there for Sweetwater. It always helps the channel. If you need a kazoo, or, you know, let's say you've got a nice RFT vacuum tube and then you break it putting it in an amp like this one. That sucks, right? It's all broken. And your tube looks like that. That's when you know they're bad, kids. The vacuum has been breached. So trash. So you can, why was I mentioning that? Because if you got to go to Sweetwater and buy some tubes, you can click that link in my affiliate link below. And it helps me out, helps the channel. And I love you all. You guys have a great week. I'll be back next week, and I will work on some guests coming up. And like Robert Valdez said, I like to rock.